This is the MeatEater podcast coming at you shirtless, severely bug-bitten, and in my case, underwearless.
We hunt the MeatEater podcast.
You can't predict anything.
The MeatEater podcast is brought to you by First Light. Whether you're checking trail cams, hanging deer stands, or scouting for elk, First Light has performance apparel to support every hunter in every environment. Check it out at firstlight.com. FIRSTLITE.com. All right, everybody. My wife's here. She wants to call this episode "A Puss in the Pot." A puss in the pot.
Definitely didn't want to call it that.
Also joined by Andrew Radziallowski, who has been. This is your what year?
15th consecutive year.
15th consecutive year being the camp cook. The camp cook at our fish shack.
Yeah.
15 years of cooking.
I'd say camp manager.
Camp manager.
We're still looking for an Andy over for our place.
Yeah.
Taking applications.
We can talk later.
Most eligible bachelor on San Juan Island.
We're gonna poach him.
Been coming for 15 years.
I don't come
Cooking.
to the fish shack without Andy.
Yeah.
Doesn't
Katie doesn't
happen
like to come
anymore.
without Andy. Andy thinks people like him. They think people like him.
He's not
What they
only
just
the
want.
best guy to just be around and hang out with. He also makes the experience because of the food.
No,
Yeah.
we're
It'd be
gonna run
so
through your
different.
repertoire of dishes.
Keeps everybody happy.
We're gonna
Sure
run through
does.
your repertoire of dishes because you have someday we should do a book called Meals from the Cove.
Yeah.
Oh, that'd be a good idea.
Meals from the Cove, very short cookbook.
Yeah. Just like 2 weeks worth of dishes.
Yeah.
Oh man, yeah, it's a great idea.
There you go.
A puss in the pot. We'll get to what.
You can't say that
some
anymore.
questions.
It can't.
Well, I was
You
also
can't-
thinking
you
about
can't say
calling
it
the
anymore.
episode Tickles, Touches, Takes.
No, neither one of those.
Which is Tickles, Touches, and Takes.
Anything with
Which
tickles
is
or puss.
about fishing. Which is just about
It is.
fishing. Tickles, Touches, and Takes. A fishing show.
No thanks.
I like that.
You know, because there's tickles.
Yeah.
When you're fishing, there's tickles.
Yep.
There's touches. And there's takes. So tickles, touches, and takes.
There's
A fishing
also like
podcast.
They're
grabs.
all the same to
There's
me.
like grabs and nibbles and smacks and
Bumps.
Or a puss in the pot.
No. And especially because you're saying it in that voice.
Yeah.
Well, I had to say it that way because yesterday, I'm going to tell this whole story. It's a great story. Yesterday, so now and then I'll say something to annoy my wife, and it won't take. So we were pulling shrimp pots, and I was expressing my enthusiasm to catch an octopus. And I said, I hope we get a big octopus. Then a while later, I said, a puss in the pot. And she had zero response. So then I had to say, a puss in the pot. At which point, then she got annoyed. So I had to soup it up.
I was annoyed
And then she
the
got,
first time you said it
then I
for
got
the
the
record.
response. I got the response I was after, which was annoying.
do you hit that line every once in a while when you're out there just to see if it's still
That's all I've been saying
All day.
all day.
All
That's all I've
day.
been saying. Yeah. Seth,
Yep.
owner of the partial owner of the Rotten A-Frame, his co-owner Kelsey Morris,
And my
Of-
co-owner and wife.
co-owner and wife Kelsey Morris of the Rotten A-Frame, and also the wonderful art gallery in Three Forks, Montana.
Boom. Yeah.
Plug the gallery. I've been telling you should come on and plug your gallery.
Yeah, thanks. The Studio Gallery in Three Forks, literally the only art establishment in town, Three Forks, Montana. It's just my little studio and gallery. Imagine that.
Kelsey used to be you were like a fertilizer salesman.
I sold agricultural implements. Yeah.
She sold
yeah.
agricultural implements and wanted every artist dream of quitting their day job.
Mm-hmm.
Self-taught painter,
Mm-hmm.
quit her day job,
Mm-hmm.
but built up to it.
Yeah.
Started selling work and doing commissions.
Yep. Did it all on the side for a very long time until it, got to my wit's end and just made the leap.
And then left your day job, opened a gallery where you sell your own work, the works of others,
Yes.
and you work in there. And when people are in Three Forks, they can come in. You'll
Right.
be in there working,
Yep.
and then you can see you. You probably don't like them to watch you work, do you?
People come and hang out and watch me work all the time. You know, it's kind of a cool experience because you just walk in the front door and whatever I'm working on, I'm there. And then the gallery where I represent 9 other really awesome artists is just right around the corner. So it's like a separate room. You can go in there and take your time and check it out. And, you know.
And you have your own work in there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I have a wall and then everybody else is kind of spread out across the other walls. It's not a huge space, but I've curated who I think are really a talented collection. So everybody's different. Nobody overlaps in subjects. So it's, you know, it's awesome in my opinion.
No, it's great. It's
Yeah.
beautiful. And your work looks great.
Thanks. Yeah.
It's better
yeah.
all the time.
Yeah.
My daughter's close on your heels.
She is. We're going to
She's
work
an
on that this week. Yeah.
She's an aspiring painter.
I brought her some supplies.
And then also joining us today is my son, Jimbabwe. How you doing, buddy?
Good.
I told him to keep his answers very brief and to be very respectful, didn't I?
Yeah.
See how good of a job he's doing? That would have normally taken him a long time to say all that, but he got it done quick. So here, we're going to talk about a couple things, and I'm going to tell my amazing octopus story with witnesses.
I haven't heard this yet, by the way. So
Listen, get ready.
There's a
All
couple
right.
of versions, I have a feeling,
already.
What versions?
of the octopus story.
No, it's just one version.
Okay.
I'm imagining the Kraken.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like that. It was like that.
Like Steve has a
It
couple
was like a
different versions?
Leviathan.
No,
Or-
I
no.
call it the
I mean, like
Leviathan.
he has you have your version, and I have a feeling my version will be slightly different.
Oh.
Yeah, because your version was experienced from as far away from the
Yes.
octopus as you could get
Yeah, we had different motivations.
Well,
in the back of the boat.
mom's was also more of a near-death experience, and yours was try to get in the boat. And mom,
She was picturing us dying, and I
Yeah,
was picturing
I was.
us
yeah.
Well, I mean,
coming
you there,
in. I was
Ginger?
picturing us
No, I
coming
was
into
not
the
there,
cove
but-
as heroes.
yeah. Well, mom was expecting you to not return to the cove.
Oh,
The
we should
fact
be
the
dead.
fact that an octopus can give you the fear of death means
yeah.
It means it was a
you should
lunker.
probably stay
Yeah, it
tuned
was
for the
big.
story.
It was a lunker. Andy just got back from Spain wherein he was eating octopus.
Yeah, we ate a lot of octopus.
They obviously haven't caught on to that My Octopus Teacher movie over there.
Nope.
They haven't translated that to Spanish. We'll cover all things octopus. Oh, and also when we talk about octopus, I want to talk about that story from Puget Sound.
Which
I've
one's that?
probably touched on it before. I'll tell it later.
Yeah.
Maui. This is an interesting story. You know, like when programs like Hunters for the Hungry and other programs where you are able to donate wild game, and then the wild game will go, they'll usually grind it to burger. Generally, you donate deer meat gets ground to burger, and it goes to families in need.
Mhm.
Oddly, in Hawaii, that was not legal. So they have what some people regard to be, I'm choosing my words carefully here, what some people regard to be a problem with way too many axis deer. So that would mean in the eyes of everyone who doesn't hunt axis deer, there are too many axis deer. In the eyes of people who hunt and eat axis deer, they probably have a feeling that things are just right. So they have a lot of axis deer on Maui. They're trying to incentivize and help lower numbers. It's a non-native, of course. Axis deer, I know this just from when I hunted axis deer in Hawaii, were a gift from someone from the Indian subcontinent where they're native to, had given them to like King Kamehameha III, gave him some axis deer, and now they're running all over, holy hell, all over the Hawaiian Islands.
They have no predators, right?
No, nothing. So up until HB 1382 or Act 54, nonprofits were not allowed to donate game meat to under-resourced communities, including the homeless. But Governor Josh Green, who I know nothing about, just signed a law saying that now you can donate the meat. The problem now they have, the bottleneck now is they just don't have a lot of processing capabilities. And people have touched on the fact of Hawaii's food. There's another story I want to talk about that gets into this too. Hawaii has very low food autonomy. They're heavily reliant on outside resources. And they don't have a lot of in-state capabilities to process meat. But they're sitting on some 60,000 axis deer, plus wild hogs, goats, and sheep. They have people who are underserved and in need of food. And so they're trying to clean up a system or develop a system and clean up the legal obstacles to being able to kill axis deer and get the meat to the needy. You guys don't think anything about that. Jimmy, what do you think about that, buddy?
I don't really understand it, but
Okay. There's an island.
yes.
It has a bunch of deer on it.
Okay.
You remember when we went to Maui?
Yeah.
We
Okay.
spent time with.
It was illegal to shoot a deer and donate the meat for a nonprofit to take deer meat and donate it to people who don't have enough food.
Well, I understand that part of it.
And now it's legal.
Yeah.
What's the
Well, it's not, so you do understand.
what's the argument against doing that?
I have no idea.
I know, in just being in the food industry, you butt up against a lot of legal stuff when you're trying to give people food, just because everybody's so happy to sue each other, you know. I end up with a lot of leftover stuff, but anything that's been pre-cooked or out of the package is just a no-no, because you don't know where it's been or how it's been handled. And I kind of treat it the same way. If people say, oh, we have all this leftover stuff, I don't know if it's been sitting in the trunk of somebody's car for 2 days, and then I
Sure,
serve
yeah.
it to people, and then you get, 300 people sick. So I understand that, but if there was a facility that was set up specifically for processing that went right to, like you said, they need to clean up that system and be able to get it directly to the people that they need to get it to.
Funny you mention that, because this article goes on to say how federal regulations complicate the situation. Because wild animals such as deer are considered non-amenable species, federal officials won't inspect them for free.
Yeah.
However, they'll inspect cows, chicken, pigs, and other farm-raised meat animals for free. So someone selling wild game commercially. Now, there's two very different things we're talking about here. I am generally... I'm not a subject matter expert on what's going on in Hawaii. I am generally absolutely opposed to the commercial sale of hunter harvested wild game.
Sure.
Not the donation of, but they're talking about anyone interested in selling wild game commercially has to pay hefty inspection fees. Like they have to foot the bill on the inspection fees, hundreds of dollars per hour. And in Hawaii, they don't have a lot of people interested in going into the meat processing business. Now, this ties into another point made by somebody else. An article just came out in the, what area is this? In the Independent. So the Independent, which is weird because it's a Brit publication that seems to cover a lot of U.S. wildlife issue stuff, oddly. In the Independent, there's an article about a landlord in Brooklyn, New York, who has put in a prohibition from their tenants cooking meat. You can only cook vegan meals in their apartment building.
Come on.
What?
Is that
You can order
illegal?
take-in. You can order takeout with meat. You cannot cook meat in their apartment building.
No way.
Is that legal?
They are vegan. There are 14 protected classes of people in New York, and food choice is not one of them. You can't discriminate by age, religion, gender, but you can discriminate by what folks like to eat for supper.
What if someone though had like a really serious peanut allergy, like those people on the plane that you can't even when the stewardess comes on, she's like, there's someone with a very severe allergy. You can't even open something. So
these people identify as full freaking vegan.
Right, but my question is if somebody if you're a landlord and you live in a residence and you have a super sensitive food allergy, could you say you can't?
Well, yeah, because there's no law saying that they can't say this.
But would that be? I mean, that it sounds ridiculous.
It sounds ridiculous, but they're totally covered. And I don't think that this is one of those areas where my personal feelings about food go up against my feelings about personal liberty.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think it should be illegal. I think that a landlord should be able to have much more latitude than they do have about who they rent to. So I'm not arguing that a landlord, like I would say, if you own a home and you're renting it out that people can stay there, I would think you should have massive latitude about who you choose to rent it to. And I would even open up the idea that some of these things that are prohibited by the law should be fair game for a landlord to choose who lives in their place. Just as a person who believes in some level of like a high level of personal autonomy about what you're doing, with your property that's not having a downstream effect on destroying other people's lives.
It's surprising to me that you would be on the landlord side here.
I think on the flip side of that, if there's definitely a handful of potential tenants in New York, people that would be like, that's my jam, sign me up, I'll pay. You know what I mean? Like, we view that as a total negative, but I'm sure there's some folks out there that love it.
Like, people would pay a premium for that.
Yeah. I don't like it, but I'm just saying I would never say, I think to myself, oh, that's disdainful.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't come and argue that the law should be otherwise, because those sorts of liberties mean as much or more to me as does what you have.
What's the threshold
for
you to change your mind? How many landlords would it take?
I own my home.
For you to, well, I mean, just for the folks out there, that are renting, like at what point does it limit housing for?
I don't foresee that becoming a problem.
Sure.
Steve, though, when we lived in New York up until 8 years ago, we rented.
Yeah.
And 9 years ago, I guess, we rented every place we ever lived in. And you broke every rule that the landlord gave you. Like, don't store stuff in the basement. We colonized the entire basement with all of our stuff.
And we ate squirrels that we caught in our own yard.
We did.
Yeah.
I didn't even check about that rule. I was assuming that wasn't a rule. The guy that wrote in with this, so a listener named Jake sent in that story and went on to say he's experienced this. He had a place. He was a renter. He's a spear fisherman from Hawaii. Once rented a house in Hilo. Is Hilo? Am I saying that right?
Mm-hmm.
That they didn't want anyone cooking any meat or fish. Okay, because they said this landlord wanted to cleanse the house of foul smells, to keep foul smells away. And he goes on to bring up this idea about in Hawaii has very low food autonomy, and everything comes in. There's a huge business to it coming in. A lot of money is made in transporting, storing food. So he said, if you, in this idea of counterculturalism that comes from being like, no cooking of meat in my home, he said the most punk rock thing you can do in Hawaii, if you're in Hawaii and you really want to stick it to the man, he says, support your local farmers and harvest your own food in whatever means you have is the way to stick it to the man in Hawaii. And thinks that this person who doesn't want them, a spear fisherman, cooking the fish he killed, has it all wrong.
Mm-hmm.
I'd be curious to know with the food program if there's anyone that is opposed to it. Like, I wonder what Kimmy thinks about that. I wonder what Danny thinks about that.
Oh, you mean back to the
first
No,
one.
I think it's one of those. It's probably one of those issues. We had a guy on the episode called The Lung King. We had a guy on who he's a doctor, and one day he uncovered. So if you go back scroll back in the episodes, you'll come to an episode called The Lung King. We recorded that at the height of the Liver King's popularity. So we called it The Lung King.
Before his downfall.
Just a physician was on, and the physician had taken an interest in eating organs and cultural biases around organ consumption, and the haggis, a very popular dish in Scotland, which has lung in it, and realized that the sale and distribution of lung in the U.S., it's illegal.
Really?
And he asked himself, well, why in the world would that be? And it was based on this very antiquated understanding of disease transmission that doesn't hold up. It was like had been in there. Once it was put in there at some point under this idea, which is not in fact true, that lungs were like more likely, eating lung was more likely to spread disease than X, Y, and Z proteins. And it just was a law. And he's been lobbying to get the law overturned and had some success at it, but it was just something that was sitting on the books.
Uh-huh.
And whoever put it there had sort of lost track of why it was there.
There's a ton of stuff like that.
And so this Hawaii situation is probably just something at some point in time someone said, you shouldn't be able to do that.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And then they sort of forgot what it was that happened.
What's the organization that's doing it again? That's cool. It's cool. What's the name of
Well,
the
I don't
organization?
even know who's doing it. It's just the governor signed a law saying you can't, I don't know any of the nonprofits that are fixing to do it, but the governor signed a law saying that they can sell it.
I feel like, though, I saw something about this on Tim Ferriss's Instagram.
I think there's a private company that's doing it.
Well, they're trying to sell it.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
that this is totally separate.
This is more like Hunters for the Hungry.
Yeah.
Yeah,
back here.
there's a whole other movement to try to shoot it and sell it, but this is trying to shoot it and donate it to
Got
the
it.
needy.
Got it.
Which we're allowed, like here in the on the mainland, even though we're not on the mainland right now. Down there on the mainland, that's very common. That we have a ton of programs where people can get venison. If you're trying to lower deer numbers on your property, you can get venison. Donate that venison to a food bank. They generally will pay for processing. They have it all ground up, and then that ground meat can go into various communities in need. Here's a crazy one. This was reported in Time. Remember those guys? I didn't know they were still in action. Insane. 37. This is crazy. 37 people. 37 people bitten by sharks so far in 2023 on the Atlantic seaboard.
Is that a lot?
Really?
Florida to New York. 37 bites.
How many fatalities?
I'm not reading about any fatalities. Bites.
That's just the Atlantic.
New York to Florida.
What's common? Like, what's an acceptable number? Is that more than
Well, I
the
don't know
average?
that that's unacceptable, and
Yeah.
I just know that it's that.
Does that feel like a lot
Yeah,
to you?
it's a real spike. They say that
Ah.
that like every article, and this isn't I'm not dogging on climate activists, but climate activists like to take anything and make it about. So this is it's like it's hot. Since it's so hot, more people are going to the beach.
Uh-huh.
So it's like,
they're not saying there's different activity in sharks because there's
Water.
some
well,
kind
no,
of
here's what's
water
going on.
temperature
No, they're
or
not
whatever.
making that. But what's going on with sharks is finning has been banned for a couple decades now. It was like when we used to have a poison campaign on, we used to fund at the federal level the poisoning of predators.
Mm-hmm.
And now when you look in mountain lion populations are expanding and growing all around the country, and they're colonizing new areas. Black bear populations expanding and colonizing new areas. Wolf populations expanding. Grizzly bear populations expanding. You're still feeling that change, that the effect of that regulatory change to stop the poisoning campaign of predators and other predator protections. So when they banned finning, like in international waters and some state waters, you used to be able to go out and just collect shark fins, which are valuable. Then they changed it where a vessel, I might have my numbers wrong, but it's something like a vessel that's transporting shark parts. Fins can only comprise, I don't have the numbers exactly right, but fins, it's something like this. Fins can only comprise 30% of your total shark part haul that you bring into port. which makes it economically like infeasible to effectively shark.
Yep.
Other states have outright just done away with any kind of commercial shark harvest. So you're seeing just shark numbers. We're seeing the effects of all the shark protection, where like this recovery and expansion of shark numbers. But this is trying to make a hook. So this article in Time, no, this one's from Bloomberg. I'm looking at two articles. One from Time, talking about a lot of shark bites. One from Bloomberg, that they're expanding the drone fleet in New York, which looks for sharks. So they're going to spend $1 million deploying 42 drones to scout beaches. So you can put a drone up in the air and scout for sharks. And they're saying they wanted to see, for you folks that didn't study journalism when you were youngsters, you need a hook. So yeah, not for fishing sharks, but for journalism.
Yeah.
Your hook would be,
I was almost confused there.
why now? Why now? Right? So you go to an editor, if you're a writer, you're like, hey, I want to write a thing about cattle rustling. And they're like, well, why now? What's the hook? Well, this is hyperlinked. Record-shattering heat. Driving lots of people to the beaches. Where they might get bit by a shark.
I mean, that is terrifying, though.
Get
Thinking
bit
about-
by a shark?
Yeah, man.
Mhm.
As a mom, too, having kids in the ocean.
Yeah.
So if they collect all this data from the drone footage, then what's the solution?
No, they're
there?
just
Do they-
using it to close. They're just using it to watch for sharks in case they got to close the beach.
Do
I think
they,
they're looking
do they
for great
net
whites.
beaches, or do they just close them all
No,
together?
close them.
They close them.
They're putting a drone up when people are swimming. They're putting a drone up to watch for great whites and stuff coming in.
Wait, why great whites? Aren't they like the least of like likely to attack people? Isn't
Yeah, but I
mainly
mean
tiger
they're like
sharks?
they're bad mother lickers, and so I mean there's probably other sharks as well. But I think that's a real scary one. That's not who's biting folk. I don't know.
Yeah, I think it's like more
Tiger
tiger and
sharks,
bull
right?
sharks.
Jimmy, you were just swimming with.
The propane is smelling strong over here.
Is it?
Did you pause?
No, we're still rolling.
I think we could probably take a little break to make sure the shack's not going to explode.
It's not, because if it was going to blow up, it already would have done it because the pilot light's lit.
Oh shoot! I kind of like looked at the
You're fine, buddy.
fireplace. All right.
Here's a correction on a correction. On a recent episode, my lovely bride and I, years ago, this you might remember this. This is the kind of thing you remember this. Long ago, we were in Salta, Argentina,
Yep.
and we went to see those Incan
Children. Yep.
that were killed and sacrificed
Yep.
on a high mountaintop, and they were perfectly preserved. And I believe the one that was on display when we were there had been struck by lightning.
Yes.
What?
She
Jeez.
was. It was the girl,
So, okay, so way back,
older
so
girl.
picture that
I think.
Whoa.
it's sort of like, it's not really, but kind of like this.
Okay.
1491.
Sure.
Okay, so it's this last glimpse of the Incan Empire pre-European contact, and they had these children. I already told this story once, so bear with me if you've heard it. So they were able to get stable isotopes on these children, and these children that I'm speaking of, these three kids, kind of like my kids' ages,
Better watch yourself.
That's a good thought.
stable isotopes from their bodies suggested they had lived on potatoes their entire life.
You're right
Really?
about the propane smell. I'm
Until-
sorry. I feel like we're.
I listen.
I mean, I feel like it's like valid enough to check out.
Let's just wave a lighter around and see what
I
happens.
had to change propane tanks.
Okay.
All of the pilots went out.
Mhm.
I was trying to get the burner lit. I realized, the tank's out. So I opened 2 doors for cross ventilation.
Oh, okay. Should we open up? that
Went
other
in,
one?
lit the pilots, heated up this reheat coffee.
Hmm.
There's an additive in propane. What's that stuff called?
to make
I'm
you
not sure.
smell it, so you don't like. Yeah.
You
so
wouldn't
you're
smell
aware.
it. There's an additive.
Got
And
it.
one day, my late buddy, who, just to bring this full circle, his picture is hanging above the vacuum sealer over there. He one time was in, I believe he was in Wichita, Kansas. And the whole town smelled like it was going to blow up. And it wound up being the place that makes the shit you put in propane to give it its smell had a leak. They leaked the stuff you put in propane to make propane smell. So he said it gave you the unnerving feeling that you were going to blow the entire planet up if you lit a match.
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to open up the other door because I feel like
That's great.
maybe it's psychosomatic, but I have a little headache.
It is hot in here too.
Yeah.
Where was I? James, where was I?
Stable
Oh, the correction.
isotopes.
The children.
Children eating potatoes.
So these kids had just eaten taters, it seems. And then they had experienced months of this varied diet full of meats and fishes and things. And these children were sacrificed and buried in this little rock cavern with literally hundreds of emblems and little treasures and carvings and gold and ivory items. And it seems as though they had selected some children for however they selected them. They had selected some children and taken these children on a tour through the Incan Empire. And throughout this tour were regaled with
variety.
With all of these treasures and offerings.
Okay.
Then the children were taken up to this peak. It was like 14,000 feet. And they got them drunk on a rice. They got them drunk on not rice. They got them drunk on a fermented potato beverage, I believe. I can't remember or a fermented corn drink.
Okay.
They were giving them cocoa leaves, which helps with elevation. They got them drunk, and it seems like the 13-year-old girl maybe realized what was going to happen and didn't like it because they had struck her in the head.
Jeez.
But the other younger kids were just fine. It seems they got them wasted.
Yeah.
Arranged them in this rock cavern on top of this peak and just left them there as offerings.
I thought the strike on the head was from the lightning.
No. Then over the subsequent centuries, at some point in time, one of them was struck by lightning.
Jeez.
How were they so well preserved? Just the
that's
rock?
what we're getting to my
Okay.
correction.
Okay.
It's so cold.
Oh.
And I had, years ago when I was working on an article about freeze-dried food, I had read up on sublimation. And I had later read that the moisture that they sublimated, meaning the moisture in their bodies went from a frozen to a gaseous state and never melted. So you could still see, like they were buried with feathers and things, and it's perfect. You could recognize the child. They're only allowed to display one at a time. And it's like you're looking at it's like you expect the child to wake up.
That is freaky.
Jeez.
Very well preserved.
Wow.
But centuries old, right? So I had talked about how they were sublimated, and some person wrote in with a very intimidating correction that they were not in fact sublimated. And I read that correction, and I took my lumps and said, okay.
Which you're so good at doing.
Took my lumps. Then a guy wrote in to say, that guy doesn't know what the hell he's talking about.
Oh, God.
They did sublimate. He said, you can go out on a dry winter day. He points out to Montana because I lived there. He says, go out and watch on a dry winter day. Snow on a hillside. It never gets above freezing. And snow on a hillside will just vanish. Nothing's wet. It just vanishes. You're watching that snow sublimates.
That could be
It's
like
not melting. It's just evaporating.
That could be a new game. You know how you like the game Alive or Dead? And you talk about
Dead or
people
Alive?
dead
Yeah.
or alive. This could be like sublimated or not sublimated.
Yeah, talk about a freaky thing, and then talk about whether it's sublimated or not. Sublimation happens all the time, this guy's saying. So, take that.
So
So do you take your lumps
who's right?
back? Yeah.
I think I am.
Or you mean that guy is?
Oh, the guy that wrote in is. Me and him are right.
The last guy.
Uh,
I want the first guy to jump back in. And
I know.
Yeah.
I think we did this.
Right
Seems
back.
unfinished.
you'll hear from him. Here's the thing that has nothing to do with anything, and it's someone wrote in about an interesting thing, and I don't think they really get what I'm talking about, but it's still interesting. Does that make sense?
Yep.
the Streisand effect.
Mm.
Okay, you familiar with this?
Mhm. I can't define it for
Okay.
you, but yeah.
And we have covered exhaustively, and we'll continue to cover the Wyoming corner crossing case because of its implications to land access, meaning there are millions of federally managed public lands that you can't get to, but if you were allowed to corner cross, meaning you picture a checkerboard land ownership, and the black squares are public and the white squares are private. If it was legal to, without stepping on the white, to step from the black to the black, right, that would open up millions of acres of access. It's a contentious issue. So we've covered a case that the whole world is watching. Well, let's say the whole country's watching. The whole country is watching this Wyoming corner crossing case. And I have repeatedly over the years of covering this brought up that I equate them, and then I apologize for the analogy. I like to point out that they were not, that initially I thought that the Missouri hunters that did the famous corner crossing in Wyoming, which led to this big legal challenge, I thought that they were activists. I assumed they were activists who were trying to get arrested in order to test something in the courts. And I had said I had imagined them as being a Rosa Parks-like figure doing civil disobedience, but they were just dudes from Missouri who thought they found a sweet hunting spot.
Mm-hmm.
Oh no, this guy's comment does make a little bit of sense. They never had the intention. And then we were talking about how now this landowner, no, this guy's exactly right the more I think this through, and I'll get to it. The landowner used to have a problem with 4 dudes from Missouri now and then corner crossing onto his place. But this guy now is going to have, it's going to, you know that famous picture during the Alaska gold rush of people coming out of Whittier and going up that mountain to get into the Yukon?
Yeah.
That's what this dude's corner is going to look like from now on.
Yeah.
The Streisand effect is like when you draw attention to something all
so
of a
this
sudden.
guy's exactly
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
Had that guy just shut up
Yeah.
and said to those Missouri dudes, listen, I see what y'all are up to here, and why don't you come over and have a cup of coffee?
Mm-hmm.
Let's just keep this between us. You keep hunting, because if this gets out, it's going to be a shit show.
Yeah.
But
It's out.
so Barbara Streisand, I'd never heard this. Barbara Streisand long ago had a photo of her home in Malibu taken. It was about coastal erosion. So a journalist was covering coastal erosion and catches a photo of Barbara Streisand outside her home in Malibu, which was suffering from coastal erosion. She wanted it taken down. It somehow had wound up in the public record, and she wanted her photo of her outside of her house in Malibu, not part of the public record. She takes it to court. Prior to her taking it to court, the story, even though the photo was part of the public record, the photo had been accessed six times, twice by her own lawyer. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
After the lawsuit became public in the news, it racked up hundreds of thousands of downloads.
Mm-hmm.
That's the Streisand effect.
Yep.
Also, guy wrote in, speaking of, we had the guest on, David Gran, author of The Wager. They're making another one of David Gran's books, Killers of the Flower Moon, into a movie. Sturgill Simpson is in that movie, and someone wanted to let us know that Sturgill Simpson was also in a zombie movie in 2019. Thanks for the note. Called The Dead Don't Die. Big thing about another starvation experience we're not going to get into. And the last thing I want to cover is this, and James, I think you'll take great interest in this. Ready for this?
Yep.
Especially because, buddy, you don't know this because you were too little. You know that photo on our fridge? You guys are always putting the magnets over everybody's body parts?
Oh, yeah.
Because you kids are all skinny dipping in the river?
Mm-hmm.
Right there.
Okay.
This, what he's talking about, was right there in Callicoon on the Delaware River. We used to fish there a lot, and you liked to fish there when you were super little. I grew up, this is a guy writing in, what's his name? Dan. I grew up along the upper Delaware River between Callicoon and Hancock. That was our float. We would float from Callicoon to Hancock, a stretch of river in which we caught 9 species of game fish. My grandfather first started tapping for bullhead in the river back in the 1940s. He would get so many bullhead that he would sell them to local bait shops who would buy them, who would sell them to smallmouth bass fishermen. 3 to 5 inch bullhead, he says, the best smallmouth bass bait. And he would tap for them. Now you're probably wondering what that means.
Yeah, what's that mean?
Well, I'll tell you. It involves wading in 0 to 18 inches of water along the bank.
0.
And you got to get a big hammer.
Okay.
Walk up to a rock. Let me know when you know. Raise your hand when you know where this is going. Andy and Seth have raised their hands. You walk up to a rock with a big hammer.
I'd imagine you
Just
tap on
tap.
the rock.
Sound
Whap!
that.
Feels
Sure
too
knows
easy.
me.
Or another rock.
Oh, because it's underneath?
Whap! Then you flip the rock. It will stun the bullhead and knock it unconscious.
Oh.
Its white belly will be turned up. Scoop it up, put it in a perforated bucket that's out sitting in the current, and within a few minutes, he'll be woken up and back to fine.
Oh,
There you go, Seth.
hot little tip.
The stunner, huh?
He says wally dogs and eels won't leave him alone either. He has poked around online and has never found anyone talking about tapping bullheads. Tubers, kayakers, canoers from the city come by, see you out there with that hammer, and they just look at you.
Oh, I bet.
I imagine so.
I used to fish in Delaware a bit, but it was further downstream,
Mm-hmm.
around Stockton and then Washington's Crossing.
Oh, what? You used to fish there?
Mm-hmm. A
That's
little bit.
patriotic.
Yeah.
What if you just like hit the rock too hard with the hammer and just kind of crush the bullhead?
Well, I think you ought to walk out the door here and get a hammer and go see if you can tap some sculpins.
Yeah.
I think you
That'd be a
could.
good
That would
test.
You
that
could
would
lose some
actually,
extra tools and
And then
lose more
leave your
tools.
tools down below the tide line. Then I find them later and scream at you
Yeah, I don't know. I don't
once they're
know that we
rusty.
need any more.
Yeah, like your
down there.
pliers.
Yeah. Jimmy the other day lost a pair of my fishing pliers, and I got a text from Brody, who's up here with us, and Brody said, Jimmy deep sixed your fishing pliers and he's sweating bullets.
I bet you were.
Yeah, I was scared.
I was down here at the end of, we were working on stuff at our place, and Jimmy paddles over and he goes, "Hey Seth, I got a question for you." I was like, "What?" He goes, "What would you do if you lost your dad's pliers?"
And
Jimmy went to multiple neighbors. He went and asked our other neighbor, what advice did he give you?
to be up front and he won't be mad, but he first offered just to give us new pairs of pliers.
That's not very upfront. That's sneaky.
This we haven't covered. This is an old story now, and it was covered on the MeatEater.com, but I just wanted to touch on it real quick. This would be a good one. This is for James. New Zealand has a feral cat problem, James. And they every year they try to kill some millions of cats or whatever. They used to have a thing where they would get a bunch of youngsters from school to go out and kill cats. It's a biosecurity issue. These
You'd love
cats
that,
are.
probably.
That'd be fun. Well,
The one
depends.
piece of advice to the youngsters: don't kill any people's pets.
What? How would you really tell the difference?
You win money killing cats.
Collar is probably the difference.
I don't know. You
Animal
wanna kill
welfare
a
groups have
cat.
shut it down. They would prefer professionals be out killing those cats and not kids.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
Get out of here.
I
agree.
mean, I just
I'm with
Give me
Katie
the
on this one.
argument for why in the world kids wouldn't be allowed, if the country's trying to get rid of cats, that they can't do their patriotic duty and get rid of cats.
because I feel like there's like a slippery slope.
Killing cats is like the number one sign of a serial
Yeah,
killer.
I
when
mean
you-
that's what you
Not when
think
you're
of,
getting
like
cold hard
sociopath.
cash.
I mean, now Steve, you used to kill cats for cash.
Yeah.
So that's probably why you feel like
Turned
this
out the
should
way you did.
happen. Yeah.
Also,
No, I used to do some cat work. But it's important to point out I did cat work for dairy farmers.
Yes, I'm not saying that you were in this latter category they were just talking about of like sociopathic children that were just killing cats. But
$5 a cat.
Well,
For dairy farmers who were trying to control feline distemper.
I feel like
how do you tell a kid, like, go out and kill that cat, but not another cat? Like, wouldn't that be confusing?
Well, first off, I'm a kid, so I can say this.
Yeah.
Kids are dumb.
Okay,
especially when you were to give a kid a weapon and tell him to look for something on a cat that would make it different from another cat. Like, I don't think that they'd be very good at following those rules.
You guys aren't ever going to be on this show again.
No, I'm not saying anything against it. I'm just saying that I can
wouldn't be
understand.
100% accurate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Organizers, where's this article from? BBC. Organizers of the North Canterbury hunting competition announced the cancellation of the cat event on Tuesday, saying they had received vile and inappropriate emails. Probably from my wife. We are disappointed and apologize for those who are excited to be involved in something that is about protecting our native birds and other vulnerable species.
This is a tough one.
It's a tough one.
But do we have to involve the kids is my question. Like, you know?
Yeah.
If only people who knew the damage wild cats cause around the place, one local wrote. They also affect our farming. Goes on to point out all the ways.
Less about the
cats,
cats, more about the kids.
And then the author of the article in the end even comes around to the recognition that they should kill these cats. But they would like to see professionals kill them.
How do you be a professional at killing cats? Doesn't seem
just,
like
I don't know. You just call yourself, I don't know.
you should just get like kids
Pro kids.
name tags with a little badge under it that says I'm professional.
See, they start trying to buy it back in the end. Adding cats to the hit list, though, is a politically contentious issue. It's not a question of whether these invasive felines should be culled, but who should do the killing.
Mm-hmm.
Then they go on to have a nice little cliche. It's not rocket science. It's not rocket science.
It's cat killing.
It should be undertaken only by experienced people using approved and proven humane methods. Certainly not children.
How young is too
Far
young?
from handing them guns and desensitizing them to animal cruelty, we should be teaching them empathy toward animals.
How young is too young to kill a cat, Steve?
How young is too young to kill a rat? I remember your kid killing a rat so young, he shot it in his underwear.
Yeah.
We got him out of bed. We got him out of bed to get it.
Yeah, he was like 5 or 6.
And look at how pathological he is now.
No, I'm asking a legitimate question. Like how?
Well, how old was he then? He was
6 maybe.
He was in bed before it got dark out.
Yeah.
When was the last time you did that?
Like 2 weeks ago. It's in the summertime. It's like
doesn't
pretty
get dark
late in
until
Montana.
10. Very
Summertime's in
nice when I'm
Montana are
tired.
long days.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, so I'm gonna tell my octopus story.
Ooh.
All right, so pulling shrimp pots, and the other day we got a small octopus pulling shrimp pots, and we went out and we were having a hell of a terrible pull. One pot had, I don't know what happened. One pot had, you never see this, had nothing in it. Not a hermit crab.
Really? Yeah, that's rare.
I don't know what happened. I feel like it landed on something, or I don't
Was
understand.
it not on the bottom?
The bait was not.
I can't
touched,
figure out.
though.
Bait untouched, not a hermit crab. It must, I can't picture what it landed on. It must have landed on like, I don't know. Nothing. You get Irish lords. Here's what all you get. You get squat lobsters, Irish lords. I've seen rockfish come up in them.
Starfish.
Juvenile tanners, sea stars, starfish, hermit crabs, mollusks, coon stripe shrimp, spot prawns. You name it.
Bunch of
Yeah.
different crabs.
Yeah.
Box crabs.
Anything down there that's hungry.
Nothing come up in this thing. And I got to saying, if we could get a big octopus, it'd turn this day around. And then I said, a puss in the pot. So we're pulling pots, and I love my shrimp and mentor, Ron Layton, once told me, pulling pots always have a gaff ready. Because he said, now and then a big puss.
Can we not
Did-
with that?
I know. It's just
What?
it's speaking of pathological. It's like
A big octopus.
thank you.
So
It's better.
what's the diameter of a hole on a shrimp pot, Andy?
Oh, yeah. What is it?
2
2 to 3 inches.
2-inch diameter hole.
Mm-hmm.
A big octopus, a 20-pound octopus can get into a shrimp pot by putting one arm in, and then they squish their head in, and they eventually get all their arms in there, and they'll get in there. And a lot of times you'll pull it up, and the octopus will just be in there, and it defies logic how he can wiggle himself in there, but they can just get in through the funnel. But my shrimping mentor taught me that now and then you get a big one, and he'll ride the trap up. And it's good to have a gaff. So you can get them and drag them in the boat. And he, in particular, would make a wonderful smoked octopus, and he would jar it.
Yeah.
And he would jar it without, remember, not a lot of liquid.
They were good.
He
Yeah.
would tenderize it, boil it, smoke it. He'd smoke the arms, cut the arms up, and then jar them, but only like a 1/4 inch of liquid. It basically, you could rattle it around the octopus, pressure canned octopus. Very good dish.
Yeah.
His mother was Tsimshian. That was her. She was Native Alaskan. So he always told me that. We're pulling pots, and I always stand up on the bow of the boat and stare down to see the pot come up. I don't know why. And I can't even make out what I'm seeing. Like it's like it doesn't like what I'm seeing doesn't register. And what happens is the pot comes up and it is draped with an octopus the likes of which I have never seen in my life.
What color was it?
Orange.
Orange.
Bright orange.
That's cool.
You check me on this.
Mm-hmm.
If I was holding the end of one of his arms right here,
Yeah.
Jimmy could get not to that counter over there, but
Almost
a good
very
ways toward
close.
that counter, and
Yep.
he'd be holding the other arm.
Really?
Yeah.
Jeez.
Oh my god! I wish I could have seen this.
Well, I'll get to how strong this thing was.
That's like what, 16, 18 feet?
No.
He wasn't that big,
Oh.
but way bigger than me to Jimmy.
How big was the head? Like that's what.
Huge.
Oh, the mantle on it,
Yeah.
like Seth's waist.
Really? Aw.
Just
You know.
maybe like my weight. Just I never seen anything like it. I mean, arms like my thighs at the base. I'm not joking.
The
It was
video that I
huge.
saw where it came off of the main body, where all the legs came together. Was
You have a video?
Massive.
Katie
massive.
does. Yes.
I need to see this. Were you freaking out?
I didn't know they got like that. I grabbed the gaff.
No.
Could you see
No,
its eyes?
first of all, this whole my fishing mentor always told me to have a gaff ready. The gaff was not ready.
No,
Like
it
you did
wasn't.
not have the gaff.
I love it.
I did grab the gaff. I gaffed it.
No, you said, hand me the gaff. I need the gaff. Give me the gaff. And then the gaff was stuck, and you're like, give me the damn gaff. So you did not have the gaff ready when you were standing at the front of the boat.
No, I did
First
not.
of
Okay, I
all.
left out that
I'm
part.
imagining so much
But
chaos
he
yelling.
did always say to have the gaff
Yes,
ready.
yes, which you did not.
Okay.
And
it was
then
in the
you
boat.
said,
It's not that big of a boat.
so you said, hand me the gaff, and then we got you the gaff.
Well,
but,
I left out a
but-
detail. He was carrying shrimp under his arms like person hauling firewood. The first thing I was doing was getting all of our shrimp back. Because he's
Yes.
like unfurling himself from this thing, and I'm throwing shrimp into the boat. He's got like, you remember that
Yeah.
time you snagged that
I
big one
was
and he
imagining.
opened up? Tell him what happened.
He was just shoveling
Yeah,
them
Listen
in.
to this
And
story.
he just had a whole cache of all kind of stuff that was
He
was
snagged it
holding
on
to.
accident.
Yeah, pulled that thing up,
Yeah,
and
you-
when it unfurled, it just had a cache of all kind of goodies. in
Really?
there.
So
Yeah.
cool.
Like stuff he's bringing home with him.
Yeah.
This guy,
That's
I'm like,
crazy.
he's all tangled and everything, and I'm just firing shrimp into the boat. True?
That's true. Yeah, that's true.
I have a question about his appearance because I'm trying to
dropping
imagine
shrimp everywhere. He's got them all wrapped up.
where are his eyes and how big are they? Like, How big are his eyes?
So if my fist is his mantle, his eyes are like here.
How big were they? Do you have a visual? I'm just trying to.
It happens
I'm
so.
trying to visualize.
I never looked him in the eye.
It happens so quickly.
No. It
But
happened very slowly.
also, I was a little bit reluctant to give you the gaff, and I realized what this is I'm gonna really, cast myself here as someone who is anti,
Like kind of an enemy of the show.
an enemy of the show.
Yeah.
But after the cat conversation, I my initial instinct was not like
To kill him.
gaff that thing.
Yeah.
She thought it was a bit much.
I was like that.
Like
I
a
said,
little octopus, but she thought that this was a large,
you're in awe.
majestic octopus.
I was totally in awe of it, and also I was like, I said to you, I was like, what's your plan? Like, what's your plan? What are you gonna do? Like, get it into the boat, and then what? I mean, this thing was
True.
like as big as the boat, and so. Like he was thinking like next step, like grab it, but then it was like, well, what if it grabs him?
Yeah.
What if it like
I'm thinking the
pulls
Kraken.
him in, and then I'm like,
Yeah.
also like that's a huge octopus. Do we need that much octopus? Are we really going to eat that much octopus?
You were thinking all that?
Yes.
She was saying all this.
Yeah.
I told her I'm going to smoke it.
Yeah. So he's like yelling as he's like, I'm
preparation
going to
going
smoke
on.
it and I'm going to
Yes.
do this, and I'm like, maybe we just like watch it
Yeah.
and then let it go.
That might have been my reaction.
But
Well,
at
that's what
this,
happened.
I have no idea what I would do, honestly.
I'll get to it.
Let's hear
All
it.
right, that's not a.
Now, for all you people who are all hopped up on the octopus teacher, my octopus teacher, I'm going to tell you something. We catch how often do you catch an octopus with all 8 of his arms?
Yeah, not that often.
They always losing their arms.
Yeah.
I think halibut tear them off.
Some asshole with a gaff.
No, they lose their arms. I want you to know that this story, like, just to be clear, an octopus can lose his whole damn arm. We recently caught an octopus that was running out of arms. Were you there for that?
No.
He had like missing one. He had a half of one. Looked rough.
No, I didn't see
Did
that.
they regrow, right?
They regrow their arms. He's unfurling himself, and I'm trying to get our shrimp back and whatnot. And then I take the gaff, and so this is a halibut gaff. And imagine a nightstick, like an old-fashioned cop from an old-fashioned cop movie from back when they had like Union Busters and whatnot, like an old-fashioned cop nightstick, a little mini baseball bat. And out of it, at a 45-degree angle, is a stainless steel spike, about 3/8 diameter at the base, maybe, comes to a fine point, no barb. What's that spike? 7 inches long, 8-inch spike, coming at a 45-degree angle, and it's you into a fish. Flop. I take the gaff, and he's got these big meaty arms, and I flop into the base of one of his arms. Okay. And I'm trying to get him in the boat, but you can't budge this thing. Because at this point, he's latched on to the underside of the boat.
And probably so strong.
To the point where I've got a foot over the boat. I'm straddling the gunnel, trying to use one of my feet to get his arms freed up.
So he detached from the pot and attached to the boat?
Yes.
He's stuck like all
And
over the boat. And I'm
Steve-
trying to pry him free.
He's
And
looking
we're trying
back. He's looking back at me and Katie.
And I turn, and these guys are in
and
the.
he's like, so you're just going to stand there? You're just going to stare at me? You're just going to stand there? And we're like, what do you want us to do?
So then finally her friend, also named Katie, springs into action. And she grabs a harpoon shaft. But we don't have my big dive knife that I keep strapped to the boat for bleeding fish. That's not in there because I wasn't in my normal boat. We don't have the harpoon head. We just have a harpoon shaft. And we're trying to use the harpoon shaft to pry him off.
But you don't have 8 people.
The next day, this morning, I realized I could have just started harvesting the arms one at
No.
a time,
That would have been so upsetting.
which didn't occur to me at the time. Just to start harvesting arms
Yeah, growing back.
and do catch and release.
That's like a sustainable harvest.
So
Yeah.
I got him, and he's working his way down away from me under the boat. And I am giving it all of my power, holding this gaff handle.
well, then you gave the gaff to Katie. You said hold, and then she was holding the
and
gaff.
I was trying to pry him free.
Yeah.
And then she couldn't hold it any longer. I
And
grabbed
she's
it.
strong.
Yeah. And I grabbed it, and the octopus is now going down down the skiff and away, and I got where my arms are underwater, and you can't get a grip, and eventually he overpowers me.
Jeez.
Yeah.
And the last we saw of him was just all what I don't know what. I have no idea what the thing weighed.
It was.
He
it
just-
was huge.
Did he ink?
Just
He inked at a point. Gone.
I
Gone
think-
from our lives.
I have an idea.
I got to think I might catch him tonight.
We have to
Jeez.
take halibut slime and put it all around the entire boat to
great
make it
idea.
slick and carry hand grenades.
Get some slippy
And
on
a
there.
pistol.
Yeah.
I'm never pulling pots without a pistol.
I think the story ended the way it was supposed to. I know that kills you.
He got away.
But you know he's down there. That's the most exciting thing.
Today I drop the and I go, duh. A puss in the pot.
Oh my God, stop saying it. But seriously, I think if we had gotten it in the boat,
We would
You
have
actually
had a
didn't-
tussle on our
you
hands.
didn't have a
Oh,
plan.
yeah.
Huh?
What? Yeah.
What?
What
No, I
would you
had
have
an
done?
absolute plan.
What was the plan?
I showed you that picture, that one we got a couple years back that was big.
That was a fraction of the size.
Here's what
of-
my shrimping mentor taught me. This is going to be upsetting to some people, so turn the show off if you're going to be upset by this. My shrimping mentor, Ron Layton, taught me this. He can very quickly invert. He turns the mantle inside out,
Ooh.
and it works good. You can turn the mantle inside
Can you
out.
do that? Have
I've
you,
done it. The one I showed you in that picture,
Andy?
which
What
is
is-
taller than me.
What does that do to it?
You turn the mantle inside out. It basically shuts it down.
How
And
do
you
you-
just take a knife and
How does that?
cut its brain right off.
Well, how does that do? How does
Yeah,
turning
how do
it
you
inside out?
turn it
The
inside out?
mantle
You just grab-
inverts.
What?
Yeah, you can just invert it. You can turn it right inside out.
That's
Like you
crazy.
just, like-
But that would mean that you would have to. It was really strong, and that would just assume that you would be able to get a grip on it to be able to do that, which I think might have been harder.
I believe
Then-
we would have had a fight on our hands, but I believe we would have gotten it taken care of.
So, Andy, when I came back
Mhm.
and told you what happened, you told me a story that you had heard.
Yeah, well, I've seen a couple different. I've been on a boat where we actually snagged one with a mooching rig, and it's very similar. It came up. It was early days. Actually, we were fishing in a canoe out on the west side. Well, you'd actually fished in that canoe.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we had actually hooked a big one, and it came up and latched itself to the side of the canoe, and the same thing, but it was still
so
attached
scary.
to the hooks. So we had pliers in that, trying to grab the hook out of this thing because we're didn't want to lose our rod setup.
And you know way going to handle it in the canoe.
No, God, no. And actually had a hold of with the pliers on the hook, and that same thing started moving along the side of that boat, and it was so strong that it basically pulled itself right off. It was close to losing the pliers, but the point where it just got almost out of reach, it ripped the webbing out of it, and it same thing just disappeared right in.
Oh, man.
Dang.
But I was also talking to an old time fisherman at one point where similar story where he got it on the board. I think he was some sort of, if he was seining or whatever, but that thing came up and wrapped around a leg and an arm. So he's actually fighting this thing, and then another arm got a hold of one of the controllers and started smoking the block of the net. And so he almost lost his whole
That's
boat because all of a
crazy.
sudden, he's pulling hydraulic arms that aren't supposed to be, in gear. And luckily he had access to a knife where he got it off his belt and started hacking at this thing, or else he
Oh
could have
my
been in some
God.
serious
Jeez.
trouble.
This is a
Because
new
you
fear
think about
unlocked
all
for
8
me
arms
up
going
here.
at one time, and
Oh,
I mean
yeah.
they're strong.
Oh, they're
Like,
powerful.
Yeah, so you
Jeez.
could get a little overpowered in a situation, but I guess a knife would handle that.
Also,
pretty
like,
quickly.
let's say that it had gotten up in the boat and it wrapped itself around you and it pulled you down into the
Yeah.
deep. We don't know. Katie and I don't know how to drive a boat. Like everyone,
Katie
there's
does.
no
Well,
plan.
That's the problem.
Get that
Come on,
my
Katie.
husband's down in the
Katie does.
variety depths. How are we gonna get home?
There.
Shit.
It's almost dinner
Now
time.
we're stuck out by the rock.
She told me she did.
So So maybe we would have made it home, but then we would have lost Dad.
Yeah, that should be the first of your
Like,
concern.
and to top it off, we were drifting out there for an hour before they came to look for us.
No, I mean everything about it. I still, I don't know, man. It was weird.
There's a lot of what ifs, you know.
The one that got away.
Yeah.
I think if it were to pull Dad in the water, I don't think it would take the time to wrap Dad up in its arm and drag him all the way down. I think
What
it'd
if
let
it
him
did
go
that? You
pretty
had your
fast.
leg over the edge. No part of you was worried about it wrapping itself around your leg because you wouldn't have
easily
been
could've.
able to let go, and it was strong enough to go down. Like it could have pulled you down.
Man, if that had happened and you like down the road, you know, after a respectable period of time remarried, I'd want you to go to bed every night thinking about me just vanishing through the depths with my knife.
With my gaff.
Fighting that octopus, man. That'd be worth it just to have that haunt you.
Well,
Just waiting for you to pop up like a rockfish and splatter out.
Well, that's what I'm mainly worried about now. Is now there's an octopus with a gaff
We were joking about this.
swimming around down there. I'm gonna be out there and all of a sudden, boom, that gaff spike's gonna come up through the bottom of the boat, and I'm like, oh,
He still has the gap.
yeah.
Oh
it won't
no.
It
stay
left
in him
with the
because
gaff.
it's like angled.
Yeah,
And there's no
is that-
bar, but he's gonna have it with him now. Whatever he's doing,
He's
you know he's gonna bring
weaponized.
that gaff with him. Yeah.
Me and my dad were joking about this morning. The thing's gonna be pulling a pot. And it's gonna ride the pot up, get it, jump
Just
in the
come up
boat,
swinging.
and just club my dad in the head, grab him, and jump overboard. And
Sink that gaff into you one
That's a
time.
little cartoon waiting.
In
to happen.
hindsight, I wish we would have not have tried to tangle with him,
Oh.
knowing that he got away.
Okay.
Mhm.
Well, but if you
if you pull him up again, would you fight him again?
Oh yeah.
Would you try to get your gaff back?
is that going to make you feel? Are you going to have different things in the boat? Like you had a pocket knife yesterday. You didn't
Yeah,
have
I'm
any.
I'm gonna get a shoulder holster.
And a hand grenade.
Shoot
Some
right
hand
through the
grenades.
boat. That'll be great.
I like the idea of octopus spray.
I'm gonna get some kind of concoction like bear spray, but for octopuses. And I'm gonna start just putting
hosing them down.
my pots out, man.
And hand grenades.
Now, two quick things. This year, you were here for this. I found a dead octopus this spring.
Yep.
The commercial shrimpers were working our area, and I found a dead octopus with a cut open mantle, and they just catch them and kill them
Why do they do that?
because they get in there and steal all your shrimp.
Competition.
Oh.
So it's common
Yeah.
to kill them and not harvest them. And here's the funny story I was going to tell
Is
you.
that
Not funny, but this is a little thing
legal?
about human nature. There was an essay about this. It was called like A Tale of Two Octopuses, and I can't remember where they appeared. I think it was maybe in the New York Times or the New Yorker. Either way, this is in Puget Sound. There was a kid in high school, and he was a diver. And he was in some food class, and so for his senior project or something, he's going to catch an octopus and cook it for his senior project. And they sign off on this, and he goes down to a beach and goes out with his dive gear and hauls up an octopus. And people in that community have a fit where he hauled the octopus up on the beach, to the point where they're trying to get the State Fish and Game Agency to ban the harvest of octopus at that location. They were so traumatized. And this is being covered in the Seattle newspaper, and the Seattle Times is being covered with a sympathetic ear to the community.
Mm-hmm.
At the same time, a new seafood restaurant opens up in Seattle.
Mm-hmm.
And their specialty dish is octopus,
Yeah.
which gets a rave review in the same newspaper. It's like, especially try the octopus.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
In the newspaper at the same time that they're condemning the high school kid for getting the octopus. It just shows like a little bit of the out of sight,
Sure.
out of mind.
Yeah.
And that dish, and they confirm that dish is Pacific octopus.
So was there any exposure of the hypocrisy there?
Well, the
or-
article, The Tale of Two Octopuses,
Okay.
was an exposure
Sure.
of the hypocrisy.
Oh, yeah.
It was very similar to a thing that we covered. We touched on Brooklyn earlier. The Southern writer, Burkhard Bilger, wrote in the New Yorker. He was profiling youth in Nevada training to be professional bull riders. Okay. So he's hanging out with ranch and rodeo families and these little kids who are being groomed to become bull riders. And so but he lives in Brooklyn. He lives near Prospect Park in Brooklyn. So in his article, he's juxtaposing these communities where in this community in Nevada, they're training their children to be bull riders. And in his community where he lives, they have installed real rocks in the park. And the people in the community trying to get the rocks removed because someone could get hurt. And this person's like, I assumed they were fake rocks. And when I went up and saw they were real rocks, I was appalled. Do you realize how bad someone could get hurt on these rocks?
Do you remember we used to go to, when we lived in Brooklyn, we went to that park all the time.
And it was like a community movement to get the rocks out of that park before someone banged their head on them.
Oh my God.
And meanwhile, he's like hanging out with like youth bull riders.
Yeah.
So it's just funny.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Our tendencies. Andy.
Yep.
Lay out your meals from the Cove.
Well, over the last 15 years, seeing how this is a very remote facility, you kind of have to get creative as far as what you're bringing in and make sure that you have all your ingredients lined up before you get here if you actually want to do composed meals. So I've kind of laid out some blueprints over the years of how things work up here. So I do a lot of repeats. Just to make my life easier as far as shopping lists go and just the ease of the dish. You know, we have a fairly decent setup here, but, you know,
Can't see it.
pot space and you know, burner space and oven space is kind of at a limited capacity. So you have to get kind of creative. But obviously, I've got the cream of the crop when it comes to seafood access. I kind of joke sometimes about at any given night there could be $2,000 worth of fresh seafood on the table that's never even hit the fridge, you know, straight from the fillet table. Crab and shrimp and halibut and salmon. And if you put that to a market octopus, if you put that to a market value, sometimes it's a little overwhelming to think that we're really living in the spoils here. But yeah, I try to do the crowd pleasers. Fish tacos are always a hit, and that's usually a repeat from year to year because everybody kind of knows that.
Because they're good.
And as the years have gone on, the clientele has kind of changed up here. You know, we've gone from all kind of 30-something adults to
Heavy
now
drinkers.
heavy booze and heavy hitting, hard charging folks to everybody's bringing kids up here nowadays. So it has been an interesting transformation of, you know, make sure that everybody enjoys the food. But that's kind of what I do, is make sure that kids are happy when they're eating. So
someone the other day asked, because we brought some fish to the neighbors, and they said, how does he fry his fish?
Oh, yeah. Well, that one I kind of joked is start by catching really small halibut.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They were so tender. We had gotten to a pile of fairly small halibut. And I really think that those fillets, I mean, they were just so delicate coming off the fish. And
You can see through them.
almost
Not that they're
see
so
through 'em.
small, but the flesh is clear.
Yeah. Yep. And they're actually the right thickness. That's a big key to frying fish, is having the right cut of fish as far as how thick you cut it. Because too thick, your outer crust is going to burn a bit before that fish is fully cooked. And if you're just like using little tail pieces, you're going to have a dried up piece of fish before you even get to where you're going, you know? So those were actually the perfect thickness as far as frying goes. My little trick is about 2 hours before I'm about to fry them, I actually season them, and I actually throw just a spoonful of mayo in with them, and just a little bit, just to kind of barely coat them.
There it is.
I usually like zest a little lemon zest and season them pretty good right in with the raw fish. and let those sit for about 2 hours. But then I rarely do the batter. If I'm doing kind of a Baja style taco, I'll do a real thin batter with them. But this I do actually the flour egg wash, and I make a crumb mixture, panko, flour. I throw a little cornstarch in there to kind of give it that little crispiness, and then it's all about seasoning. All cooking, it comes down to being able to season stuff properly. That's why that kind of had that nice. But I'm telling you that was some of the most tender halibut I've ever cooked.
It knocked our socks off over there.
Yeah,
The
the
peasant
review over at our place
crew.
was top notch.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I was secretly giving myself a little laugh about this one. Like, oh, nailed this one.
Another favorite of mine that you do, and you might be the only one that does it, is a green seafood enchilada.
Yeah, and that one just kind of came out of a lot of leftovers. You know, I tend to cook a little too much from night to night, so there's always a little bit of leftover cooked fish hanging out, and you got to kind of get creative with how to use cooked fish and shellfish without overdoing it, and that's kind of the perfect application for that. So I just kind of mixed a bunch of cooked halibut, salmon, crab, shrimp, mix that all together with sauteed onions and green chilies, and cilantro and lime, and make a little green enchilada sauce and whipped it all together. Traditionally, seafood and cheese aren't kind of paired normally, but it works out pretty good, doesn't it?
Yeah, for sure.
It's a very rich dish because it's got the heavy base to it, and it's got cheese in it, and a little bit of sour cream. But
Sounds
man,
so
is it
good.
wrapped in flour
Sounds
tortillas.
amazing.
Yeah, we might revisit that one tonight because I made a little too much.
Well, then talk
Brody's-
about how you assemble it and form it up.
Well, I make the mixture and then roll them into, as you would any enchilada, roll them into tortillas, and then kind of sauce them, cheese them, pop them in the oven, just let them get nice and brown and
Oh,
crispy.
they're good, man.
Yeah.
My
I was going to say Brody's son Conley has been talking about those
Yeah,
for a year.
Since last year, yeah.
And like the day we got here, he's like, "When are you going to make the
And I think
seafood
they're
enchiladas?"
I think they're even better after the fact. So
Yeah.
we've got a couple
Nice.
pans left over, and you actually just carve out those little squares and then pop them back in the oven real hot, and they just get like nice crispy edges on it.
Oh,
Because they're set now, like
Yeah.
all that filling has cooled down and kind of solidified and all gelled together. Cut little squares and crisp them back up. I think they're better on the second day.
Sounds awesome.
Oh, then every year you do a seafood chowder.
That's
Yeah.
my
Wait,
favorite.
wait. Yeah,
The
I
chowder
was
and the
interrupted-
curry.
I interrupted
We-
you.
You haven't hit curry yet.
Nope.
I
Yeah,
think you
we
made that
too.
last.
We had your curry last year.
Yeah.
That was
Yeah.
amazing. That we're still talking about that
Yeah.
this year.
Well, you guys might get lucky, and I think it's coming around week 2. But we did a chowder a couple nights ago, and that's just kind of a classic
So
chowder.
good.
But yeah, when you're working with all the goods around here, put crab and shrimp, and I think that had salmon and cod and halibut all mixed in there.
What did you put on those scallops last night that
I
we
want to
ate?
get to the scallop dish.
Oh
I
my
want to talk about
God,
the cut.
that was good.
I want to talk about the cut. But you can talk about the sauce, then I'll talk about the cut.
Yeah, that one I just whipped up, kind of looked around what we had on hand, and there was some oranges for the kids, some of those little cuties or the small little oranges, and I used some of that juice with some lime juice, a little bit of soy sauce, a little bit of sesame oil, some really fine minced ginger and garlic in there.
We were out getting
Man.
scallops. He started grilling the kids about how many oranges they'd eaten.
Yeah. Well,
Did you guys eat all those oranges?
Yeah, mine was turning because you need some sort of acidic. So basically, yeah, Steve was out and Jim were out harvesting. Oh, and Kelsey, all three of you guys were out harvesting some beautiful rock scallops. And yeah, what are they? Silver dollar size? I mean, they're about some of them.
Oh,
get
the pinks?
the actual meat.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like a really skimpy sausage patty, a really skimpy breakfast sausage patty.
Right.
A chicken nugget. A big one's about the size of a chicken nugget,
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
Good size.
Yeah, that's about right.
but
But-
round.
But cutting them, super sharp knife. I went out actually to the fillet table and I surveyed every knife in the house and found the sharpest one out there. And you go a against the grain, like you'd be cutting just coins off the top. Like, so you can just picture putting that thing on a slicer and just cutting paper thin shaves from the top to the bottom. And being that thin and using the sauce that I did that has just that slight acidity to it with the juice of the lime and the lime and the orange, just gives it enough to start to give it a little cook or a little marinade to where it's kind of takes the edge off of that rawness.
So you're making like a ceviche type.
Yeah,
Kinda.
we mess with cooking them, but I like them raw better.
Yeah,
man.
barely. I mean, just
Yeah.
it's not like where you'd go heavy lime
Right.
juice where you're actually cooking that fish and lime juice, just enough to kind of. And man, they pick up flavor really quick because I literally cut them, put them on that plate with the sauce, and instantly they picked up that flavor.
Yeah.
I mean, the soy and the soy sauce and the sesame oil is very strong, so
Yeah.
it picks that up pretty quick. But just paper thin, and man, they're good. They're just
We had a friend
delicious.
we had a friend up here who was not aware of when you see a scallop what you're seeing.
I was surprised.
Yeah,
when we were
she's had
going
been always
over.
seen
Yeah.
scallops in restaurants or whatever, but never realized what it was that you're looking at.
Yeah.
We don't eat mussels and clams because of paralytic shellfish poisoning. There's no testing on our beaches for paralytic shellfish poisoning, so it's a little bit of a gamble. But I'm not making advice to listeners, but I'm just saying how we've come to a decision that we have is that an acquaintance of mine who's a doctor, he's done a lot of research on this, and just no case for the adductor muscle, which is what I'm going to get to. What you're eating on a scallop when you get scallops is the adductor muscle. Everything in the scallop is edible, but we eat the adductor muscle because there's no known cases where adductor muscles from scallops have ever transmitted PSP. And people know the term bivalve. It's like it's got two shells, like a clam shell. The muscle is just attached to each shell. It's just what holds the shells together. It's got a hinge apparatus, this weird, crazy purple thing that functions as a hinge. And then that muscle is stuck to the center of each shell. So when you clean it, you're just getting in there and scraping the muscle free from each side. And it's just that little deal. And he's talking about laying that little muscle down, like how it would be if it was in its shell. You're laying it down and just cutting, like I said, cutting coins from top to bottom. And that made a big difference because the thing that you used to, before you started getting into that, it's just mealier than a bay scallop.
oh yeah,
It's grainier. And then I would cut them the other way. So I'd lay it down and cut slices off it with the grain. And that was good, but not nearly as good as that cross grain.
yeah, it'd be like cutting a piece of meat kind of the wrong way with the grain, and you get that long chew to it. It's kind of the same concept.
Oh, they're good.
Yeah.
Jimmy, what's your favorite thing that you've eaten this week? That
The
Andy's
halibut,
made?
by
Oh,
far.
Yeah.
Fried halibut.
It was
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah.
What was that sauce that you made with that white sauce?
It's just kind of a
Tartar sauce type.
shack tartar sauce.
Oh, you know, I
Love
thought
it.
that was
whatever
delicious.
was in the
We
fridge.
were- we were putting it on our
You know how
breakfast
people were talking about
burritos.
it went missing? It went over to the neighbors.
We
Oh, because I heard people talking about what happened to it.
Yeah.
we ate it on everything.
Yeah. No, that was just a kind of
Yeah,
a
we,
run and shoot.
we took that sauce and had it on breakfast burritos. We were putting on cheeseburgers. It was good.
You know, we're not.
Shack sauce.
We'll take whatever we can get over there.
So, James, to close things out, what is your favorite activity that you engage in these parts? What do you like the most?
I have two main
Move
ones.
your mic, like I said. No.
Two fingers.
What do you feel like doing to Dad right now? Just with one.
Okay, go on. See how much better you sound now?
Yeah. Two things I can't really decide between either. Diving for scallops and just looking at all the little shrimp and rock crabs and how everything kind of lives underwater. Where you, when you're fishing out here, you really don't know what's beneath you or what's happening. That's kind of the mystery of it, and that's what makes it fun. That diving here in Alaska, I know we're not. I can't speak.
So that's one of the things you
Yeah.
like. Yep.
And then fishing lingcod.
You like fishing lingcod.
Yeah.
And pulling up gigantic halibut.
Yeah.
Jim
that's
caught
it.
a real nice
Yeah,
fish.
Jimmy got a big one.
That was fun to watch.
Yep. Jimmy got a giant.
It was cute the other night when it was the first or second night we were here, and Matt whispered to me, he's like, I want to go around the table and everyone has to say what they like the most about Alaska.
Aw.
Oh, that's
and
cool.
It wasn't fishing specific or activity specific, but you had a really nice answer, Jimmy. Do you remember what you said?
Like the family that you build up here is kind of like, there's like, you get to know everybody so much better and get to like be close to people and kind of get to like share an experience you don't really get to share with people like more up here, and you get to like really learn about everybody. And I just think it's cool that you get to spend that time with people and not have to worry about anything.
Definitely.
That's a great
Amen.
answer. Yeah.
What I shared when we
Ditto.
went around the table is that in John McPhee's, listen, hear me out.
Yeah.
In John McPhee's Pulitzer Prize winning Annals of the Former World, his Pulitzer Prize winning work on American geology, there's a couple nuggets in there. I'm going to get to the main nugget, but I want to share a couple nuggets in there. At one point in that book, he says, if I was going to sum this book up in one sentence, it would be that the top of Mount Everest is marine limestone. He also points out that if you imagine the world's history as being a timeline stretching from the tip of your finger to the other tip of your finger with your arms spread out, you would remove human history with one stroke of a nail file. And he also says that he explains how in 80 million years, Japan will have accreted all of the Aleutian Islands into one big landmass, and that landmass will dock up against Alaska. And what's cool about that is that Alaska formed the same way. It was accreted archipelagos that formed in a big glob of like just islands accumulating together, and it docked up against California. And that's what caused the gold that became the California gold rush in the Sierra. Because that stuff, like all that stuff that went under the plate, bubbled up like that out there. But then this big blob that's Alaska shot up against the California coast and then rode and is riding a transform fault. And so far it's ridden north to where it is now. Think about that.
It's pretty wild.
And that's what you're most thankful about the cabin.
That was
before
literally
that
his
octopus.
answer.
That was before that octopus. Now the thing I'm most thankful of is that I might catch him tonight. Round 2.
Yep.
All right, guys, we're going to wrap it up.
Yeah. It's high tide right now.
Oh.
Actually, I think it's on the fall.
Thanks for joining, Jimmy.
Yep.
You got in a lot of trouble this week, but you did a great job.
What do I get in trouble for?
It's,
Losing pliers.
Oh,
losing my
yeah.
We can all
pliers.
say that.
Jimmy's
losing a lot of spinners.
he's in a weird stage between being a kid and being an adult. He's 13 and you're expected to now go, your little brother and sister get to run around and just be little maniacs all day, and you're expected to help in a different way. And I'm sure that's a hard transition, but a necessary one.
And if your little brother lost my spinner, I wouldn't even have a question for him.
Yeah, I know.
But with you, you get a lot of
You're
questions.
becoming a man of the sea.
It doesn't.
But
You're
there's
learning a lot of stuff though, and pretty soon you'll be taking the skiff out by yourself or with buddies, and
that is so scary to
No,
think about.
I almost
but
killed me and everyone on the boat in the skiff.
no, you didn't. You did a good job yesterday when Dad jumped over to Brody's boat. Oh, you didn't talk about that, but
That's too embarrassing.
you thought for Brody, you
Listen.
also were like, "It's a fish! It's a fish!"
It's the
it was
anchor.
the
I
anchor.
want-
Oh, I heard about it.
Let me explain.
Andy was telling us about
Why'd
this.
you have to bring this up? Because it takes so long to explain what happened. Okay. We had 2 skiffs monkeyed together. Very strong current. So strong that the buoy is like throwing ripples like a rock in the middle of a river. Right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Way
it was a
current.
ripping.
A big incoming tide.
Yeah.
Anchored a boat. Monkeyed another boat off that by tying it off behind that. Okay? Then, on the same ridge line, anchored another boat. 3 boats, 2 anchors. Brody's fishing out of the boat that's tied off on my boat, which is anchored in place. He's jigging, and your jig is way out yonder because it's 280 feet of water. So by the time, you're jigging at an angle.
Yeah.
He feels as though he's snagged something. But here's the deal. Andy's boat and the current is putting so much pressure on his anchor that when Brody's lifting up with his rod, and it's like 80-pound braid, he's lifting up with his rod, and it's lifting the anchor out of its bed. He's anchored on my anchor, so he's not moving. But when he lifts up, because he's hooked an Admiralty anchor and is pulling it out the other direction, which is causing that skiff to just a little bit move down. And when it's going, and I'm like, you've got to be snagged on something. And I eventually climb into his boat and grab that rod, and I'm like, I don't know what's down there, but it's alive. Because you'd be holding dead still, like you're not moving. That thing's going.
Oh.
And with the same motion of a halibut.
Like a head shake.
Yeah.
Then I'm like, you got to be on a fish that's under something. Like he wrapped on something. Like he's wrapped on a rock. I don't know what. And that's what it feels like. But eventually it's like not. This is way off in some other direction. And I said, let's pull that anchor and find out what's going on. And it was on the anchor.
Meanwhile, you're in charge of the boat.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
Jimmy was doing an excellent job driving the boat.
He wanted to get into the mix.
Except for the time where I almost killed everyone.
One
No,
and
you
two.
didn't. The boats were getting too close, and you reversed it, and you did a good job. You did a great job.
Yeah, you wanted to get in on the fight.
Yeah, it's good.
Good job, Jim Jam.
Can't watch that kind of stuff go down way over, far away.
Well, you were screaming,
You might
it's a
need another-
giant fish. It's a giant fish.
No,
I bet.
I said,
It's a
Whatever it
6-foot
is,
long stingray.
I said, whatever it is,
You
it's
did.
alive.
He did. He had a stingray theory.
I had a stingray theory. Well, now and then we'll hook something and you can't get it up, and eventually get it up, and it's these huge rays
I've seen that.
right here on this chart.
Yeah.
Those
Where
are
is
good
he?
to eat.
I saw that once.
Right there.
Yeah.
Number. I can't read.
You
it.
just
I'm
never
just
know.
looking at that hook next to your face. That doesn't feel like it's a
That
good
circle
spot.
hook that can't get you.
spot for it.
Stick your hand on it.
All right, everybody. Thanks for joining. See you next time.
Later.